Every spring, it is the same routine. You go to the garden center, you stand in front of a wall of tomato fertilizers, and you try to figure out which one is going to finally give you those huge, perfect tomatoes you see on the internet. You buy the 10-10-10, or the special tomato formula, or the fish emulsion that smells like a dock at low tide. You feed on schedule, you water on schedule, and by August, you have a plant full of mediocre fruit and a garage full of half-empty bottles. Now picture this. An Amish grower in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, walks into his garden and picks a tomato the size of a softball off a plant that has never been fed a single commercial product. Not once, not granular, not liquid, not organic bottled fertilizer, nothing with a label on it. His tomatoes are enormous, deeply colored, and split-your-face delicious, and he would look at your shelf of bottles the way you would look at someone buying air in a can. Why would you pay for something the earth gives you for free? My name is Dennis Harwell. I have been growing tomatoes for over 30 years, and I am ashamed to tell you how much money I spent on fertilizer during that time. Hundreds of dollars, maybe more. I had a feeding schedule taped to my potting bench like a hospital medication chart, and my tomatoes were fine, just fine. Never great. It was not until I spent a July afternoon in an Amish garden outside of Intercourse, Pennsylvania, actually looking at what they were doing, that I understood why. I had been feeding my plants, they had been feeding their soil, and that distinction, which sounds like a small thing, is actually the entire difference between fine tomatoes and extraordinary ones. Let me show you exactly what they do and why it works. The Amish have a guiding principle called Gelassenheit, Gelassenheit, which means yielding to the natural order. In the garden, that principle shows up as a deep trust in biological systems. You do not force a plant to grow. By dumping synthetic nutrients on it, you build soil so rich, so biologically alive, that the plant takes exactly what it needs, when it needs it, in the form it can actually use. Commercial fertilizers, like giving someone a vitamin pill instead of a meal, it delivers isolated nutrients, but it skips the entire biological delivery system that plants evolved to depend on. Mycorrhizal fungi, beneficial bacteria, earthworms, organic matter slowly releasing nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium in forms that plant roots can absorb without burning or shocking the system. The Amish do not know those scientific terms, but they know what their grandparents knew. Take care of the dirt, and the dirt takes care of the tomatoes. Here are the 5 methods that make it work. Everything in the Amish tomato method starts here. If you skip this step and try the others, you will get modest results. If you nail this step and do nothing else, your tomatoes will still improve dramatically. That is how fundamental soil health is. The Amish build their tomato beds with 3 primary amendments applied every single year without exception. The first is homemade compost, not the bagged stuff from the hardware store, which is often partially decomposed wood chips with minimal nutritional value. Real compost, made from kitchen scraps, garden waste, straw, and manure that has been turned and aged for 6 months to a year. Apply 3 to 4 inches to your tomato beds in early spring and work it into the top 8 to 10 inches of soil. This is the backbone of everything. The second is aged animal manure. The Amish typically use horse manure because they have horses, but aged cow or chicken manure works the same way. The critical word here is aged. Fresh manure will burn your plants and introduce pathogens. Manure needs to be composted or aged for a minimum of 6 months and ideally a full year. If you do not have access to farm manure, you can buy composted manure in bags, but use it as a supplement to your homemade compost, not a replacement. Apply a 1 to 2 inch layer and mix it in with the compost. The third amendment is wood ash, and this one surprised me. The Amish sprinkle hardwood ash from their stoves and fireplaces over their garden beds at a rate of roughly 1 to 2 pounds per 100 square feet. Wood ash provides potassium, which is directly responsible for fruit size and flavor in tomatoes. It also raises soil pH slightly, which benefits tomatoes that prefer a pH between 6.2 and 6.8. Do not overdo the ash. A light dusting worked into the soil in early spring is all you need. If you are already at or above a pH of 7, skip the ash entirely. A simple soil test from your county extension office will tell you where you stand. The combination of compost, aged manure, and wood ash creates a soil ecosystem that slowly and steadily delivers every nutrient a tomato plant needs without a single bottle of commercial fertilizer. The Amish have been doing this for generations, and university soil science research confirms exactly why it works. Here is a technique that most gardeners have heard of, but very few commit to fully. When the Amish transplant a tomato seedling, they bury it deep. And I mean deep. They remove every leaf and branch from the bottom 2/3 of the plant and bury the stem all the way up to just below the top cluster of leaves. If the seedling is 12 inches tall, 8 inches of that stem goes underground. This sounds aggressive, and the first time I tried it, I was certain I was killing my plants. I was not. Tomatoes are one of the few vegetables that produce adventitious roots along their buried stems. Every inch of stem you put underground develops new roots within days. Those extra roots give the plant a much larger root system for absorbing water and nutrients from all that beautiful soil you just built. The result is a sturdier plant with better drought resistance and, critically, more access to the nutrition in your compost and manure-enriched soil. Here is the specific method. Dig a hole about 8 to 10 inches deep. If your soil is heavy clay, dig a trench instead and lay the stem sideways, gently bending the top upward. The buried portion will still root along its entire length. Add a handful of compost to the bottom of the hole, strip the lower leaves, set the plant deep. Fill the hole and press the soil gently but firmly around the stem. Water deeply at planting. The Amish do not stake their tomatoes for about 2 weeks after transplanting, giving the new root system time to establish before the plant is asked to support vertical growth. That patience matters. I have done side-by-side comparisons in my own garden between deep-planted and standard-planted tomatoes from the same seed packet, and the deep-planted tomatoes consistently produce larger fruit and more of it. This is not opinion. This is something you can test yourself in one season. This is the step that separates enormous tomatoes from average ones, and it is the step most home gardeners either skip or do incorrectly. The Amish prune their indeterminate tomato varieties aggressively, and they do it for one specific reason. Every sucker you leave on a tomato plant is another branch that will flower, set fruit, and demand energy from the root system. More fruit sounds like a good thing until you realize that the plant's total energy is finite. 30 small tomatoes or 12 giants. The plant can do one or the other, but not both. The Amish prune to a single liter or at most 2 liters. Here is what that means. Every few days during the growing season, you walk your tomato row and look for suckers. Suckers are the small shoots that emerge in the crotch between the main stem and a side branch. They grow at a 45-degree angle and they appear fast, sometimes reaching several inches in just a few days. Pinch or snip them off when they are small, ideally under 3 inches. If a sucker has gotten away from you and grown large, cut it cleanly with pruners rather than ripping it, which can damage the main stem. You also want to remove the lowest branches up to about 12 inches from the ground once the plant is established. These branches are the first to get soil splash, the first to develop fungal problems, and they contribute very little to fruit production. Removing them improves airflow around the base of the plant and directs energy upward. I resisted pruning for years because it felt wasteful. Cutting off healthy growth went against every instinct I had. Then I tried it on half my plants while leaving the other half unpruned. The pruned plants produced significantly fewer total tomatoes, but each fruit was noticeably larger, and the overall yield by weight was actually higher. More pounds of usable fruit from less chaos on the plant. That one season converted me permanently. Once the tomatoes are in the ground and the soil is warm, usually about 2 to 3 weeks after transplanting, the Amish lay down a thick layer of organic mulch. Straw is the most common choice. Not hay, which is full of weed seeds, but clean straw. They apply it 4 to 6 inches deep around the base of every tomato plant, leaving a 2-inch gap around the stem to prevent moisture sitting directly against it. This mulch does 4 things simultaneously. It suppresses weeds, which eliminates competition for nutrients without you having to disturb the soil by hoeing or cultivating. It retains soil moisture, which means more consistent water availability and fewer problems with blossom end rot, which is caused by inconsistent calcium uptake during uneven watering. It regulates soil temperature, keeping roots cool during summer heat waves. and as it slowly breaks down over the course of the season, it adds organic matter back into the soil, continuing to build that living soil system we talked about in step 1. By the end of the season, much of that straw has decomposed. The Amish simply turn the remnants into the bed in the fall and add fresh straw the following year. It is a self-reinforcing cycle. Every year the mulch builds the soil. Every year the soil grows better tomatoes. The method compounds over time, which is why Amish garden soil that has been managed this way for decades is almost black, with organic matter and teeming with earthworms. Your soil can get there too, it just takes consistency and patience. The final piece of the Amish tomato method is strategic companion planting. Not the vague kind where people tell you to plant marigolds everywhere and hope for the best, but specific combinations that serve specific purposes. Basil planted within 12 to 15 inches of your tomato plants repels aphids, whiteflies, and hornworm moths. The volatile oils in basil foliage are genuinely repellent to these pests, and multiple studies have confirmed the effect. Basil is not just a kitchen convenience planted nearby. It is active pest management. Carrots interplanted between tomato plants help break up and aerate the soil around the tomato root zone with their deep taproots. They mature before the tomato canopy fully shades them out, so they are harvested by midsummer without competing for light. Borage, a flowering herb with blue star-shaped blossoms, attracts pollinating insects that improve tomato fruit set and predatory insects that feed on tomato pests. Planted at the ends of your tomato rows, about 18 inches from the nearest tomato. What you do not want to plant near tomatoes is anything from the brassica family. Cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, and kale are all heavy feeders that compete directly with tomatoes for the same soil nutrients. The Amish keep these in separate beds entirely, ideally on different ends of the garden. So let me give you honest expectations. If your soil is currently depleted, compacted, or has been managed with synthetic fertilizers for years, you are not going to get Amish-level tomatoes in your first season. Your soil biology needs time to rebuild. The compost, manure, and wood ash will start making a difference immediately, but the full transformation takes 2 to 3 years of consistent amendment. By your second season, you will see a real improvement. By your third, you will understand why the Amish never felt the need to buy fertilizer in the first place. If you are gardening in zones 3 through 5, wait until your soil temperature is consistently above 60 degrees Fahrenheit before transplanting, and use black plastic or dark mulch for the first few weeks to warm the soil before switching to straw. In zones 8 and 9, your challenge is heat rather than cold. Mulch earlier and heavier, and consider afternoon shade cloth during peak summer to reduce stress on the plants. I want to close with this. I spent decades and hundreds of dollars trying to grow great tomatoes by feeding the plant. The Amish spend nothing and grow better tomatoes by feeding the soil. That is not a clever saying. That is the fundamental shift that changed my garden, and it can change yours. Start this season. Build a compost pile if you do not have one. Plant your tomatoes deeper than feels comfortable. Prune the suckers even when it hurts. Mulch thick and be patient. Your soil will reward every bit of that effort, and your tomatoes will show it. Tell me in the comments what your biggest tomato frustration has been. I read every single one, and I will see you in the next video.